What's up, everybody? Once again, it's Adam. It's hashtag homeless. It's day 64. Once again, I walked around the park. There's no quiet place in this park right now. The power company there's a bench that I normally try to sit at. And now it seems like every morning or every 4 or 5 mornings out of the week, the power company that's right next to this park. It's basically this little park here in Jamestown's right next to the local power plant, and I think it's land that's owned by them. It's basically like the equivalent of in Springfield, or whatever state Springfield is in, where Mr. Burns owns the nuclear power plant. It's basically like a little park that Mr. Burns would have put in town to make up for all the three-eyed fish and all the poisoning and all the destruction that his power plant's done to the town of Springfield. But I'll put a nice park next door to the power plant for all you people to come. There's a river here with a reservoir, and it's where you can catch all of your three-eyed fish, all the three-eyed fish you want. So that's where I am right now. That's where I am most of the mornings. So I found the best place I can find, and I have to go to DSS, social services, in layman's terms, and do this stupid ass paperwork nonsense again, like I do 3 times a week now at least. And so I'm just going to kill some time and talk to you guys, get that out of the way. That way, when I get to the library later, I'm ready to rock. Let's see what we wanted to talk about today. Whew, so much stuff. Every day there's so much stuff going on. Probation. I'll talk about that for a minute. I got a call from my probation officer's boss, who's in the Buffalo, New York office. We had a long conversation because now the Pittsburgh office is getting in touch with his office, and there's some stuff going on there, and I don't want to say too much right now because I have some speculation as to what these internal politics are right now with regards to my case. And I think it works out in my favor right now. And I'm just going to leave it at that. But this guy was very nice, once again, very friendly. And he was also very supportive of me in terms of, the options that I had in front of me and the choices that I made. And he basically said, I hope that it all works out and that the Texas probation office allows you to go down there to stay with your friend. So that's good. All I need to do is wait right now. And even if he left the option on the table for me to stay here in Jamestown, even he said that. If I can get some sort of solid footing, it seems to me that everybody in the office, from my probation officer, his boss, the office in Pittsburgh, whatever it takes for me to get on my feet, they'll be supportive of it. When it comes down to, their friendliness and professionalism, I've said this more than once. I even had an experience in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where I got stranded after my release from prison because of the bad booking on the part of the BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, for my travel arrangements to get home. And it took a probation officer in Bridgeport, Connecticut to help me. And he helped me not only get back home, but he got me home faster than I would have gotten home if I had not been stranded in the first place. So thanks to them, I haven't had any big problems with them. And one of the things I keep noticing in these videos, so you might see me cringe a little bit here and there, is how often I say, I'm catching it, but I'm these are, there I go. These verbal tics are so hard to put the kibosh on. One of the things they teach you when you're learning how to speak, if you ever took a public speaking class or anything like that, they will teach you to just pause. That's why you see politicians speak so slowly, because they want you to understand and absorb what they're saying. And when you talk really fast and in a rush, it starts to sound like gibberish when you start going too fast. And that's why they pause all the time. Plus, it's a tactic of, if you're going to have some sort of verbal tic, then pausing in your speech, you can kind of trick yourself into doing that instead of the stupid verbal tics that come out of your mouth when you're talking. So that's something I keep hearing in my videos, and when I hear them played back to me, I cringe every time, and it starts to take away from the content because I'm counting the number of times I do it, and it's just ridiculous. And some days are better than others, but yesterday's was just ridiculously bad. So I'm trying to put the kibosh on that and just become a better speaker. This is the way to do it, by just doing it. Practice makes perfect, they say. When I'm trying to think of something, when I'm trying to get my thoughts together, that's when it comes out the most. So when it comes to taking a pee, I was talking about that in several videos. Having to pee is one of the worst things about being homeless. I swear. I lived in Pittsburgh for over 20 years, and in that time, I spent almost every day of my life in downtown Pittsburgh, either working at a job in one of the steel and glass towers. I've probably worked in just about every one of them at some point, or for some other reason or activity or whatever. I spent a lot of time in downtown Pittsburgh. I moved there in 1994. And right off the bat, you experience how tough it is to find a place to go to the bathroom when you're in any big city. This isn't just Pittsburgh. Jamestown's not even a big city, and it's ridiculous here. The reason is because businesses don't want homeless people coming in to use the bathroom and loitering on their property. So that's why when you walk into a fast food joint in the suburbs, you can just walk right into the bathroom, go to the bathroom, and leave without buying anything, and no one's going to bat an eye or care. But also, these business owners in the city, in the downtown areas, they use it as an excuse to force you into buying something in order to use the bathroom. They do it. That what I just told you, the homeless people, that's their excuse. But another reason that they all do it is because they just want to get a couple bucks out of everybody that walks in that door. But if you spend any time in a city, you learn pretty quickly where the publicly accessible facilities are located. Here in Jamestown, there are 2 places I can go to the bathroom without paying for something: the library and the homeless shelter. And that's it. That's it. I have yet to find any other place in this town to go to the bathroom for free. And on top of that, if I'm using the public Wi-Fi, there's no place in town where I can feel safe leaving all my stuff out on a table while I walk away for a few minutes. So yesterday, within an hour of sitting at my desk, I'd have to pee. In a normal world, that's a 2-minute trip to the bathroom. But in my world right now, that's a 20-minute shit show of having to pack all my stuff up, shut down my laptop, carry everything with me to the bathroom, and then go back and set everything up again. Only to have to pee within another hour, depending on how much water I drank. And so as a result, I'm not drinking a lot of water. I'm dehydrated all the time during the day just for that reason. You get to the point, and then I get to the point of just holding it for an hour, 2 hours. There was one day this week I held it in for 5 hours because I didn't want to interrupt my workflow. I just sat there holding it in. Sometimes it gets to the point where I just need to go so bad I have to suck it up, pack up my entire space, and go take care of it. This is the reason I'm happy about having a private room at the shelter. When I'm there, I'm able to go to the bathroom when I need to and leave everything sitting on my desk. I work there a few hours a night with my laptop open, but I can get some things done and I can drink enough water to make up for the water I didn't drink during the day. I can get a lot more done in a few hours sitting there than I can at the library sitting there all day sometimes, just because of that reason. Yesterday, I conducted I'm going to call it a pee drill at the library when I couldn't hold it any longer. I timed the process from the moment I decided to pack down and go to the bathroom to take a whiz and then get back up and running again. And from the time I started shutting things down to the time I got back and had everything set back up, it was 9 minutes. And that was going as fast as I possibly can as a fire drill scenario, not, a lackadaisical approach. And I might be able to get it down to 7 or 8 minutes, but that's about the fastest I can pull it off. So I had to do this 3 or 4 times yesterday. And you add that all up, and it's over an hour of lost time just because you had to pee. If I had a home or a stable place to work from, I might have lost maybe 15 minutes in the same amount of time due to taking bathroom breaks. That's why I don't drink a lot of water during the day. But yesterday morning I had a thing of iced coffee for lunch, and that ended up creating a negative net gain in my water weight because I wasn't drinking water. I peed more than I drank during the course of the day just because of that iced coffee. So I have to be careful with caffeine intake. And if I'm at Tim Hortons, I can add another 5 minutes of waiting around for the people who work there to go unlock the bathroom door. Because, once again, it's one of those places where you have to buy something in order to take a pee. And they won't just hand you the key to go to the bathroom. They have to stop. They have to basically have no customers in the store, and then an employee will come out with a key in their hand, go unlock the door for you. It's stupid, but it's going to take the 9 minutes that it took me to pack down and pack back and open everything back up. You can add another 5 minutes to that if I'm at Tim Hortons. So, once again, I really need to find out what brand of adult diapers that Joe Biden wears, because if those adult diapers are suitable for a president of the United States, whether it's a make-believe president or a real one, then maybe I can throw a pair of these on all morning and sit at the library all day feeling fresh and dry after I let one go in the chair. At least I won't be like the guy at Tim Hortons who peed all over the chair and the floor, leaving a bright yellow puddle everywhere before they kicked him out of the restaurant a few weeks ago. So on the job front, the next topic. I have something going on that's very interesting, but I think I'm going to have to hold it off for a couple of days because the story's going to go one direction or another depending on what happens today and maybe Monday. It's either going to be an example of what a really shitty company does, or it's going to be an example of something good happening in my life. I don't know which way it's going to go right now, so I'm just going to skip over that. And now we're in the politics section of the notes, and the I hate Trump guy, he's back at the library full force now, ever since last weekend. And he's just making all kinds of noise. He cannot wait for another guy to take a shot at Donald Trump. Everybody's sick of him too. Everybody's sick and tired of the guy, but he just will not stop. And he can be at the opposite end of the library and he's talking and yelling so loud that I'm hearing him through my headphones on the opposite side of the library. And I thought libraries were supposed to be quiet, but I guess that's not the case anymore. Once again, don't get me wrong. I'm laughing my ass off at the cancel culture folks getting canceled this week. I see more and more Democrats losing their jobs because they ran their mouth on social media and getting a dose of their own medicine that they've been forcing down everyone's throat for 8 years now. It's amusing, but don't let that feeling make you think everything's going to be okay now, because things are not going to be okay. Let's just go back in time to when George W. Bush was president. I was around paying attention, and I remember Bill O'Reilly in the Republicans yelling and screaming at the Democrats to shut up. Bill O'Reilly telling people to shut up, cut his mic, he doesn't get to talk anymore. Whenever these people tried speaking the truth. And to be completely honest, the Republicans started the cancel culture when all of the war hawks kept censoring the left and anybody else who spoke out against Bush and all of his wars. and the truth, like about things like 9/11. So when the Democrats got into power, they went full tilt dishing all of this out to the other side. And now it's the Republicans crying about being censored all the time. So I'm an older guy. I've been around. I've been paying attention to this stuff for the longest time, a lot longer than some of you people watching. And so I know, don't worry, when the Republicans are back in full control, they're going to dish it out even harder back to the left and anyone else. And once again, the Republicans are going to be the ones taking it too far. And so I'm amused when I see the stuff going on, but I already know where it's going. And you're all going to start calling me a communist Democrat instead of a lunatic right-wing nut job within a span of about 3 years. That's my prediction right now. So, in the news, I don't even know where to begin with this one. The girl who sells bottled farts in a jar has some inside information about the Donald Trump shooting last weekend. Yep, you heard me right. I saw something about this girl who got famous for selling her bottled farts in mason jars to simpletons online. Her name is Stephanie Motto. And she claims that she has some information saying that the hit planned on Donald Trump was an inside job. And this is coming from a United States senator who pays her for video sex online. She's saying that the senator, who remains unnamed, told her to expect something big over the weekend last week. And I don't know if anything she says is credible, but if any of it is credible, we all know that she isn't going to be around much longer to tell any more tales, because dead people tell no tales. We all know what happens when people with that kind of knowledge start talking. Remember when Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself? Is there anybody out there who believes Jeffrey Epstein killed himself? Is there anybody? If there's any of you watching this video that believe Jeffrey Epstein actually killed himself, leave a comment down below. Is there anybody? Because I personally do not know anybody who believes that. Not one single person. But I have a wild imagination, but never in my wildest imagination would I have envisioned America turning into a country where a guy who ran around saying he likes to grab women by the pussy and banging porn stars can become president, followed by a crippled old dementia-riddled creep who can't even fill a high school gym of supporters getting away with stealing an election, followed by the pussy-grabbing porn star banging ex-president almost getting his brains blown out, his life saved only because he happened to turn his head at the right moment, followed by a girl who got famous for selling bottled farts in mason jars, having the inside scoop on the shooting being an inside job because she's having video sex over Zoom with a United States senator. My imagination is wild, but wow, dude, this country is gone. This country is done. So I don't know why this reminds me of it, but yesterday I was talking about my professional references and being called by the company that I'm trying to get a really good software design job with. And I'm going to drop a plug, and I'm going to put a link in the description below for one of those good friends of mine who gave me a solid reference the other day when that company called him. So if you enjoy hearing stories about stupid people, and I assume you do because you're watching these videos, then I assume that you would be interested in a podcast all about stupid people. And it's called What Else But the Stupid People Podcast. One of the hosts of the podcast, Chris, he's a good friend of mine who I worked for several years ago. It was probably the best group of people I ever worked with in my life. I worked for him quite a long time ago, before 9/11, and in fact, we watched 9/11 from the conference room at his company. To be honest, that was the last time in my career that I could say I was truly friends and really good friends with everybody I worked with. We all hung out together both inside and outside the office, And this was before the whole country and the demeanor of America began to radically change. 9/11 was the first time I saw this radical shift in our culture. And I can honestly say that from this company forward, I began to isolate myself from coworkers pretty often. At the next company I worked for, I met a whole bunch of people who I knew from somewhere, and it was only a few hours into the job before we all realized that we were all a bunch of ravers back in the day, and many of the people at this company had been to a rave that I held at my house. Long story, not for this video, but my house in Pittsburgh, I held a pretty big rave with about 20 DJs all night long, turned into a big block party. It was crazy. We're just going to leave it there. A lot of them had seen me spin records that night. I used to be a little bit of a rave DJ. And a lot of them had been to the party. And it turned out that several of those guys were also DJs or electronic musicians. So once again, we all hung out together. We went to all these parties together. I performed on stage with some of them as a house and breakbeats DJ, taking turns on stage for an hour-long set at a time as we traveled around to clubs, bars, and different parties around Pittsburgh, Ohio, and the West Virginia Panhandle region. But after that experience, I spent 6 years freelancing for a living. And then I came back to the workforce to work for software companies specifically. And company cultures had changed so radically in the 6 years that I was gone that I couldn't believe what I was seeing at these places. Obama had just become president when I went back to work. And if you were working at these companies during those 6 years, you might not have noticed the radical changes in the atmosphere at work. But after walking away for 6 years and then coming back, it was unbearable. It was insane. It was completely insane. And so that was around the time in my career that I decided I'm keeping my work life and my private life completely separate. And I've really never opened myself up to becoming friends or getting very close to coworkers ever since. I go to work to do a job, and that's it. And then I leave and I have my personal life. I keep them completely separate from each other. There really hasn't been a single coworker since coming back to the workforce that I really continue speaking with or have friendships with outside the office. We might chat a little bit online, email, LinkedIn, etc. Hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. But nothing personal. Even regardless of how well we got along at the office, because I do meet people at these jobs that I know I would get along with very well outside of the company, but to protect myself, I've learned not to become friends with people at work, because you don't want people at work knowing about your personal life, because what can and will be used against you will be used against you. Remember what I said about people not wanting to get in trouble with liability issues when giving out professional references? It's kind of along the same lines as that. I don't want people at work knowing anything about my private life, because these days people like to use that kind of stuff against you in all sorts of malicious ways. And it was just a reflex action on my part to protect myself. And I can talk about this subject all day long and share stories as an example of what I'm talking about. But one small example I'll share is that I've worked for companies when everybody shows up for the Monday morning meeting saying things like, "So, what did you do all weekend?" And if you go first in that conversation, you could make the grave mistake of saying something like, "I spent time with my kids. I relaxed a little bit. Went to the park. We went on a hike. Went on a bicycle ride," etc., etc. But then you hear everybody else in the room saying things like, "Well, I finished up those TPS reports," or "I optimized the configuration of the TDS enhancer. I wrote more code for the compression-based algorithm," or some other thing that tells you, the one who went first, that this was not a question about what you did to recharge your batteries over the weekend. This was a question asking each of you how much work you did for the company last weekend. And I'll never make that mistake again. I don't answer the question. I don't volunteer to go first. And if I do get forced to say something, I just give some sort of vague answer that sounds like, well, maybe I worked, and that I don't have any kind of social life, hobbies, or desire to spend any time with my family. I did a little bit of this, I did a little bit of that. That's pretty much the level I keep it at if I get asked that kind of question. Because that's how ridiculous the work culture has become in our country these days. Put it this way. Before the radical culture change, we all had fun at work. We picked on each other. We treated each other like friends. Friends pick on each other. That's what you do. It's a sign of friendship when you're a dude hanging out with other dudes, at least, that the more you pick on each other and the more you put each other down, it's a sign of how good of friends you are. At least that's the way it's been my whole life. If we picked on somebody and they got really upset, we would apologize and say it won't happen again. We took it too far. Sorry, man. But most of the time, people would just pick on us right back. In fact, I worked at a company once, and we would tell people during their job interviews, we would say, I hope this does not strike you the wrong way, but how do you feel about harassment at the workplace? Because we need to warn you that if you choose to work here, our harassment policy states that you are going to be harassed. And this would crack people up. People would start laughing their ass off when we would say this to them in a job interview. And they thought it was hysterical. This made people want to work with us even more than they already did before they walked in the door. And why? Because they knew we were a bunch of lighthearted, hilarious motherfuckers who aren't going to be offended by some off-the-wall comment you make, and that we all joke around, we all have a sense of humor, we all hang out outside of the office together, and we are all real with each other. You don't got to worry about losing your job over some off-the-cuff remark, because you're going to hear them from us all the time. But there's no workplace like that in America anymore. Not as far as I know. Things have changed. Things have changed. I can honestly say that every single person I have ever known, you know who you are. You've all said something so bad in my presence, if I know you, that if word got out about what you said, you would be ruined for the rest of your life. And I'm not kidding when I say every single person I've ever known. So me, I don't get offended by the things that people say, whether or not it was a public rant or a private conversation. And I wish people would just lighten up. I'm sick of this culture that we're in right now. I've seen the left dragging things out that people said when they were in high school out into the public forum, trying to use some racist comment from a fucking kid who ended up becoming famous, or something that they said 20 years ago, trying to get their lives completely destroyed. And frankly, it's just time to knock it off and lighten up already. People, and I mean all people, all of you, you say fucked up things from time to time. So it's time for America to get over it. That's my opinion. It's time to try and pick up, well, let's see where I'm at on time, because I do have things I got to do today. And I do want to get into the stuff that came up at church last weekend. But once again, I think I'm going to have to end this, because if I start down that path, it's going to be another 15 minutes. So that is what's going on. Like I said, it was story time a little bit today, because there really isn't much going on in the daily being homeless situation. More of the same old, same old. At the shelter yesterday, a guy must have been drunk, passed out at the dinner table with his face in a plate of food. Let's see, so we talk about that stuff, and there isn't much else to say. People are treating me a little better at the shelter in terms of the people that run it. They were never treating me badly in the first place, but there is a little bit of attitude. Everybody that works there has a different set of rules. There are a number of people who run the place who told me they don't care what time I go to bed at night anymore, because I have a private room. But there's one person that works there who's been coming up to the room on the nights that he works, yelling at me because I didn't go to bed at 11 o'clock, telling me he's going to write me up for staying up past my bedtime. And I was working on a logo design. I was working on my portfolio, trying to get a job. I wasn't screwing around watching porn or some other bullshit. I was working on a legitimate project and trying to put in a couple more hours on it. Also, I had taken some melatonin about half an hour before he came up, and I was just trying to do a couple of things to kind of lull myself to sleep. So now I have to actually talk to some people above this guy because I need a clarification on what the rules are, because everybody has different rules, and I already know how this is going to turn out, but I just have to wait for the right time and the right moment to talk to the right people, and then I'll be okay. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I think we're at a good amount of time for the video today. I'm going to go do my stupid busy work at the social services office. Once again, I'm going to get there bright and early, 15, 20 minutes before I'm supposed to be there. I'll be the first one in line. I'll be the first one out of the door. And hopefully tomorrow we'll have a better conversation. Hope you all have a good day. I hope you all get done whatever it is that you need to get done today. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Peace out.